The worst day of Michael Jackson's life did not happen on stage. It did not happen under the bright lights of fame. And it did not happen while millions of people screamed his name. It happened quietly, behind closed doors, away from the cameras, away from the music. A moment so painful that even years later, the people closest to him still could not talk about it without breaking down, because the world saw Michael Jackson as a superstar. But the people around him saw something very different. A lonely child trapped inside the most famous man on earth. Before the fame, before the accusations, before the headlines calling him strange, Michael was just a little boy from Gary with endless energy. According to his mother, Katherine Jackson, he could never sit still. Even as a toddler, he moved to every rhythm he heard. One tiny sound in the room could make him dance, and that was the beginning. Inside a small, crowded home, the Jackson 5 brothers practiced music together for hours. Songs from The Temptations echoed through the house almost every day. Then one moment changed everything. Michael was only around 4 years old when he suddenly joined his brothers during rehearsal. Perfect harmony, perfect timing. A voice so natural that even the adults stopped and stared. Katherine Jackson later admitted she almost cried hearing him sing. Because somehow, this tiny child already sounded special, and from that moment on, the family knew Michael was different, but talent came with a cost. While other kids played outside, Michael spent his childhood in recording studios. While children his age watched cartoons, he rehearsed dance routines for hours. His father, Joe Jackson, ruled the household with strict discipline. Very strict discipline. The Jackson family grew up in a rough environment where crime surrounded them daily. Joe believed toughness was necessary if his children were going to survive and succeed. And according to Katherine, punishments were normal in those days. But years later, many people, including Michael himself, would describe those experiences very differently. Because fame gave Michael everything he dreamed of, while quietly taking away the one thing he could never get back. His childhood. As the lead singer of the Jackson 5, Michael became the center of attention everywhere he went. Fans screamed at him. Crowds chased him. People treated him less like a person and more like a spectacle. At one point, Michael reportedly told his mother he felt like an animal in a cage, and that sentence explains almost everything about the man he would later become. The stage became the only place where he truly felt comfortable. Offstage, he was shy, quiet, guarded. But once the music started, everything changed. The little boy, who struggled to feel normal, suddenly transformed into the biggest entertainer in the world. Then came the explosion. Albums like Thriller turned Michael Jackson into something no artist had ever become before. Not just a celebrity, global obsession. Every move he made became international news. His voice, his clothes, his face, even the way he walked, and eventually, the attention became unbearable. As Michael's appearance changed over the years, tabloids turned him into a joke. Cruel headlines spread across magazines. Late-night television mocked him constantly. The nickname Wacko Jacko followed him everywhere. Katherine Jackson hated it. She insisted her son was not strange, not crazy, just deeply misunderstood. But by that point, the media narrative had already taken control, and things were about to get much worse. Because in 1993, everything changed overnight. The allegations against Michael Jackson shocked the entire world. Suddenly, the king of pop was no longer being discussed for music. Now every headline focused on accusations involving children. Television stations covered the story nonstop. Newspapers treated it like a global scandal, and the world became divided. Some people believed Michael instantly. Others turned against him immediately. Katherine Jackson stood firmly beside her son from the beginning. She repeatedly defended him publicly and claimed he looked her in the eye and denied every accusation. To her, there was no doubt. But public opinion had already started shifting, and that is the terrifying thing about fame. Once the narrative changes, it almost never changes back. The media frenzy became relentless. Every interview, every photograph, every strange rumor, everything was turned into evidence against him. Michael's personal life became entertainment for millions of strangers. And, according to his family, the emotional damage was devastating. Even after legal battles ended, the accusations never truly disappeared. They followed him for the rest of his life. That was the real punishment, not just the courtroom battles, but the permanent stain on his reputation. Because once someone becomes controversial, people stop seeing the human being behind the headlines. And for Michael Jackson, that isolation only grew deeper. He retreated further into himself, further into fantasy, further away from reality. Neverland Ranch became his escape from the outside world, a place filled with amusement rides, animals, and children laughing. To Michael, it represented the childhood he never had, but to critics, it became something darker, and once suspicion enters the public mind, every action begins to look suspicious. That is what made Michael Jackson's story so tragic. The same qualities some people saw as innocence, others saw as evidence, and no matter what happened afterward, the debate never stopped. Then came the criminal trial in the early 2000s. Again, the world watched every second. Cameras followed Michael everywhere. Commentators analyzed every expression on his face. The pressure became overwhelming. Katherine Jackson later admitted the situation nearly destroyed her emotionally. She could not sleep. She constantly prayed, and she feared the world had already decided her son's fate before the trial even began. When Michael was eventually acquitted, his fans celebrated. But the victory did not erase the damage. His image was shattered. The man once loved by nearly everyone had become one of the most controversial celebrities on Earth. Concert opportunities disappeared. Business relationships became complicated, and the stress reportedly took a serious toll on his health. Yet despite everything, Michael still dreamed of returning to the stage. In 2009, he announced the This Is It comeback shows in London. Fans exploded with excitement. It was supposed to be redemption, a second chance. One final reminder that the king of pop still had magic left. But behind the scenes, people close to Michael were worried. Katherine Jackson later admitted she feared the schedule was too demanding for him physically. Michael had not performed at that level in years. The rehearsals were intense. The pressure was enormous. And then came June 25, 2009, the day the world stopped. News stations interrupted regular programming. Fans gathered outside hospitals crying. Millions of people stared at their televisions in disbelief. Michael Jackson was dead. For many people, it felt impossible. A man who seemed larger than life, suddenly gone at only 50 years old. Katherine Jackson later described the moment she received the news. Nobody wanted to tell her directly. Everyone hesitated. Everyone waited for someone else to say the words. And deep down, she already knew. What followed was one of the largest public reactions in entertainment history. Fans flooded the streets worldwide. Radio stations played Michael Jackson music non-stop. Albums immediately returned to the top of the charts. Suddenly, the world remembered the genius again. Not just the controversies, not just the rumors, the music, the dancing, the performances, the once-in-a-generation talent that changed pop culture forever. Even people who criticized him during his lifetime now spoke about his influence with admiration, and that created another uncomfortable question. Why do people wait until someone dies to see their humanity? Because Michael Jackson's story was never simple. He was celebrated, mocked, loved, accused, protected, attacked. Depending on who you ask, he was either one of the greatest entertainers who ever lived or one of the most misunderstood public figures in history. Maybe both. But underneath all the fame, all the lawsuits, all the headlines, there was still that same little boy from Gary, Indiana, the child dancing on the floor to a rhythm only he could hear. A boy who wanted love. A boy who wanted acceptance. A boy who spent his entire life trying to create happiness for others while quietly falling apart himself. And maybe that is why Michael Jackson still fascinates the world today. Because people are not just looking at a celebrity story, they are looking at what happens when fame becomes bigger than the human being living inside it. The applause gave Michael Jackson everything: money, power, immortality, but it may have also taken away the one thing he wanted most: peace. And perhaps that is the saddest part of all. The man who taught the world how to smile on stage may have spent much of his life suffering in silence.